I'd love to welcome you to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom podcast, a place for ambitious individuals to capture proud moments on who they've become. It's a discussion that finds insights, the highs and the lows on where they have been at stages in their life. A safe space to share and openly talk about their journey. So if you're on a journey yourself and you're wanting to stretch, go further and farther than you've ever thought was possible, mastering your life is something that will connect you with your identity. I'm excited to be welcoming some very interesting guests to add value to your journey. For more information and to stay in the loop on what Master Your Life is all about and gain more value, head over to www.master-your-life.co.uk. Subscribe to my newsletter and stay in the loop. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your host, Luke Beastall, and I know I say it all the time, I really do, but I don't think there's ever been a moment in this journey so far on the podcast that I haven't had a very exciting but insightful guest on the show. So her name is Naomi Lloyd, and I just want to share this because I like to share a little bit about how we connected. She actually came along to a mindset maintenance event that I was part of last year. We just sort of dropped a message, started sharing. She was like, I love kind of the way you shared your message. And I also noticed that she's got a podcast, which is called How to Belong. I mean, this is great what we're going to talk about today because a lot of this is open conversation and hearing about the journey. And here we are, we're here on a podcast. She has been doing photography. So just giving you a bit of a background, for over 18 years. She's done all different types of work, which I'm sure we'll get into as well. She is an author. She's a copywriter. And like I say, she's a podcast host as well. So I am really excited. She's someone that wears multiple hats. She's in multiple facets in her life and business, which I think in this day and age, it's very, very important to be multidimensional, keep things creative, keep things exciting. Naomi, I'm really excited to have you. So welcome.
Hello. Lovely to be here and finally to connect with another Northerner on the podcast.
I know we was talking about this, weren't we, before? Because obviously I know you're now based down in Portsmouth, and you'd said, Luke, I've lived down here for, 24 years?
Yeah, 24 years and still got the accent.
That is good, to be fair, because, normally people kind of lose it. So if you just, obviously the audience kind of checking in, you do a lot of different things. Just let them know a little bit more about, I guess, your journey. We're going to open it up as we go along anyway, but just so people can understand a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the introduction. That was lovely. I think you described it really well, being aware of many different hats and trying to get to a point in life where I don't apologise for that. And I think you're right. I think we're moving into a world where people are embracing different facets of their personalities and their identities. But to go back, I started off, did a law degree. I was very much brought up in a family where your value was rated more highly if you did very well in at school. So I was very conditioned into trying to be a high achiever and get the top grade, things like that. And then there was, I had this opportunity as I left law school to get a grant to go to South Africa as a young deaf person because I had a hearing loss since I was a child. And do some exploration work there and research into deaf rights in South Africa. So that really was amazing, but it really did send me off onto a different track, which I never got back onto the sort of academic law side, and moved down to Portsmouth and decided to set up a photography business, which was never part of the plan, but has been incredible. And I now in my mid-40s able to look at that and go, wow, that's actually proven to be really enlightening, really enriching experiences, because I'm showing people stories and I still have
Yeah.
families that come back to me. I might have photographed their wedding and they're on child number 4, and I'm photographing their babies. And, you walk around their house and the photographs that are in their house. So that. But I think I am going to say this because I don't know if anybody else will relate to it. And I wonder if they do. If you were brought up in a family where your value was very much linked to your results and your success, it's really hard to sort of unlearn that sort of conditioning. I'm not saying, obviously, being a photographer is a very successful, lovely, creative thing to do. I just think if you've been brought up to be that academic type of professional job is rated in a certain way, I think, if I'm honest, I had to sort of really knock off that chip that I had on my shoulder of the feeling that I hadn't done what I'd set out to do. And I don't stay on path. I don't stay in my lane. And I realise now that's who I am, and that's part of my personality. I'm curious and passionate about lots of things. And that's why about 10 years ago, I had an itch that I just had to scratch in terms of I had to write a book. And quite determined when I get my head into it again. It was a dream. I had a dream about this story. So I set about writing the series of books, dystopian fantasy books. And that took me all over the world doing research into diamonds. Again, going off different lanes, but just each one taking me on a journey that led to something else. And I think I've always been very open to opening doors and allowing myself to see where that goes to. And ultimately, I'm now running the How to Belong podcast, which I'd say is probably been one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done. And that came from a rock bottom moment, I'd say, the podcast, which is no bad thing. And that's because, as I was talking to you about before we started recording, in 2021, I lost my mum, and it was in quite a sudden, traumatic way. And I really, really struggled with the grief. Yeah. And I found that I was 75% away finishing the book that I was working on. And it was a sequel as well, so not good to not finish a sequel. And I still haven't finished it. And I try not to make myself feel like a failure for that, because it's just very much attached to a very painful time. In fact, one of my podcast guests helped me to reach that conclusion, which is great because guests are so helpful when it comes to things like this. Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is that we can help each other, and we can exchange these pieces of advice that can help you feel more peaceful in life. And I decided that losing my mum, I just suddenly, I had this overwhelming feeling that I just didn't know where I belonged anymore. Suddenly, things that hadn't bothered me. I don't know, even having a northern accent in the south, weird things like wearing hearing aids, that became a thing for me. My biggest fan, my origin family person wasn't there anymore. And it shifted the tectonic plates in my life in a way that I just can't explain. I'm sure many people can relate to who've lost somebody big in their life. And it was just a turning point that I decided I needed to explore a bit more. And writing was proving difficult. Sitting in my office on my own all the time wasn't good for me. So yeah, I decided a podcast would be a really good way of connecting with people. And it's just been an incredible journey so far. I'm sure you can relate to, because you are an amazing podcaster yourself.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm
sorry that went on a long time.
No, it didn't actually. It got my head spinning with like so many sort of questions. But I just want to actually say, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, Naomi. I mean, obviously, you've definitely turned it into a massive positive, and it's opened up you into a whole new world of, like you say, exploration and stuff like that, which I absolutely love. The bit where you'd spoken about conversations with other people has opened your eyes up to more. You've learned stuff off people. I can honestly say that, and I know the the listeners who are tuning in on this episode, I'm sure they're going to drop you a message and they will be learning from you, because not only is it sort of inspiring from you, obviously, with something that, again, you couldn't control from a childhood, obviously, being deaf and stuff like that, that you haven't let that limit you in a way to be able to create what you want to create in terms of your dreams, and I think it's really, really powerful, that. But what I wanted to ask you, and it was like the deep burning question that was coming to my head as I was listening, is you'd spoken about how you'd come from, and I know, again, a lot of people relate to this, and I've heard this from some of the guests on the podcast about academics and parents kind of sort of conditioning into a way of like, you want your schooling, you want your education. You'd spoken about it was a hard sort of conditioning mindset to break free from. It's kind of hard to unlearn it. I'd love to know from your now experience, what did you do? Like, what sort of made it click or crack for you to unlearn that sort of conditioning?
If I'm really honest, I'm not sure I've completely unlearned it. I can't profess to have got there yet, but
Yeah,
I can say that I'm constantly open and curious to find ways to if somebody says, you seem like you've got a lot of success in life, to say thank you. You know, that very un-British thing to do, where you go, oh, thank you. Whereas my default position was to go, no, I should have been a lawyer. Even now, my husband just goes, name it. If you'd have been a lawyer, you'd have wanted to be a Supreme Court judge, and you would never think whatever you did was enough. And I probably will always have that part of me that's like that. And I just know that, but it's okay, because I think the more that as a mum, as I watch my son growing up in a very different generation, I'm learning that through them, by being a mum to them, where um I'm being much more open and liberal, and with my love for them and them and how I express how I value them. I'm trying to be, anyway, that it's not about your success which makes you, valuable. Even though they're doing brilliantly and I'm very proud of them, I think uniqueness and celebrating uniqueness is so much more important than looking at somebody's CV all the time. And the pursuit of success can be chaotic, and perfectionism can be chaotic. So I'm trying to teach myself that all the time and remind myself of it. And hopefully I'll get there one day, because I think it'd be more peaceful to live life. Like, I know some friends of mine, they're just so peaceful. They just don't seem to have that ingrained in them, that I must succeed. I must have done this.
So so this is really good. I love that you shared that about your son as well, because obviously different generation. How there's a lot of sort of open-mindedness. Like, say, how would you know that this default conditioning is? How would you know that that's been sort of cured? Or
Really good question. You're making me think now. I could see where you were going with that. I'm thinking, great question. How would I know? I wish I knew the answer to that as well. I don't, because what would have to happen for me to go, okay, you've done all right? Good question. Not there yet. I really don't know the answer to that, but you've made me think. That might be a good thing to write down. But then that's just me giving myself another goal, isn't it? Do you relate to it, Luke? Have you got that feeling as well yourself?
Yeah, massively. But it's just a different perspective, isn't it?
Mm.
Remember, you just shared there about your voice in your head, where it was very much you're not good enough, or there's never enough, or that sort of thing. Obviously, naturally, we're going to have those sort of holding back thoughts, negative thoughts, limiting self-beliefs, all that kind of thing. So it's just a nice exploration to go, yeah, how would I feel if I was to get rid of that default?
Yeah,
How would, so how would I know that now I'm not conditioned by my past?
well, you know what's really interesting, and when you said that, I don't know what it was that you said, but it made me think. Because one of the things that I talk about a lot in the podcast with my guests is, what does belonging mean to you?
Right, yes.
And I think these two things actually go together, because what I think is my conditioning is that my sense of belonging and value comes from the origin family, or from my past. And actually, I probably am further along on this track than I actually realise, because when I really think about belonging, and I do think it's about belonging to yourself. And if you can find that you can go anywhere in the world and be in any room, as long as you don't have to belong and fit in there, but you have to keep always being belonging to yourself. And I definitely, the more and more I have these enriching conversations with people, I think actually I am in that place now. Yeah. Even the fact that before I started recording the podcast, and I was talking to Steve, the guy who's my brilliant producer who helped me get the thing going, my biggest worry was that my speech would sound awful on podcast, because...
And it doesn't, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I've got used to hearing my voice now. And it's a thing that a lot of people say they don't like their voices, do they? A lot of people say that when they hear it on a recording. So you have to overcome that as a podcaster. But a really good turning point for me was when I listened to the first episode. So the first episode of How to Belong is where Steve, my producer, interviews me for the very first episode. So we can kind of as an introduction as to who I am and why I want to do this. And I talk about the grief journey, and I am very open about the fact that I was nervous about my voice, and that I sounded a bit foggy. I had that sort of what somebody might perceive as sounding a bit of a deaf voice. I mean, you've seen the way that some of the incredibly inspirational deaf women on TV, such as Tasha Guri, who was on Strictly Come Dancing. When she was in Love Island, she got subjected to awful trolls about her voice. So I know it does exist and people can be mean. Then when I did actually hear that first episode back, I went for a walk with my earphones on the beach with my lovely dog, and I immediately rang Steve back, who's my producer, and he said, "What did you think?" And I said, and this just came out. I went, "I quite like her actually." And he
Haha.
went, "What, you mean you?" And I went, "Yeah, she sounded all right. I quite liked her." And it just came out, and it was such an amazing feeling. It was such an amazing feeling. So I probably knew, and now I'm going to go back a bit and say I think I'm a hell of a lot further along in that sort of taking that chip off the shoulder, because it's a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that sort of insight and perception there, though, because you are a lot further along just by sharing it out loud as well. So that's quite clear to hear in your voice as well. The fact that you've actually enjoyed listening to yourself. We all say I was exactly the same. I used to think to myself, I'm annoying people, but then you realise actually no. But when you know how much the impact is having on people, but yourself most importantly, by actually having these conversations, I think is brilliant. But there was something that I think is really gold for the audience to kind of check in on this as we go through society, as we go through schooling systems. It's all part of growing up, I guess. Is that you'd spoken about expression, you'd spoken about now you can actually showcase storytelling via imagery, right? But if you think about going through the schooling system, it's sort of like when you're a young kid. I'm seeing this with my daughter now, is that it's all about painting, splashing, getting dirty, doing all different cool sort of things. But then as you go through school, it's a little bit like it gets a bit serious. It's all about exams and having to prove yourself. And I think that's when self-expression and creativity starts to, without it kind of, it subconsciously starts getting stripped away. You feel a lot of pressure and having to hit the grades and getting to uni and college and, all this kind of stuff. So I think if, like, let's say, I'm just hypothetically speaking here, that if you haven't got some sort of hobby that's creative outside of the work, schooling and stuff like that, you can kind of find yourself struggling to, not say struggling to fit in, but I guess struggling to kind of connect with yourself, because you lose yourself in that, because you was once sort of playful, creative, never checking time, just sort of like enjoying life. And then it suddenly gets really serious. So, for you, if you was to sort of like, I guess, conclude your sort of experience where you've unlearned it, you've unpacked that sort of conditioning, and if there's anyone listening in today that's like, oh, do you know what, Naomi, I sort of feel like I still have that pressure to be academic and I can't seem to break it and I'm struggling. What would you say to them as sort of to help them be more open and curious?
I would say talk to some of the people that you feel the safest with, people that have known you for the longest amount of time, and be prepared to be a bit vulnerable and ask that, because you'll probably find that question of what do you think is successful. If you have to refer to me or explain who I am to somebody else, get your best friend or your partner, just even if you have to be a bit jokey with you to get it out, just say, sometimes I just feel like I didn't go where I was meant to go, and I'm here and I'm glad I'm here, but what do you think? Ask somebody else to show them you from their lens, because you'd probably be very surprised. One of my guests surprised me by saying, because I think you're really successful, actually. The reason he thought that was not what I was expecting. He said, you've been married for 24 years and you've got two, really successful, creative, lovely children. You renovated a house and you live by the sea and you've got lots of friends. And this was a revelation to me, because he'd ignored all the other stuff that we've been chatting about in the podcast, and he wasn't focusing on, my books or my photography or anything like that. That was, and this isn't somebody that knows me very well at all, but just somebody that's very insightful. So I think that's a really, really good thing to do. If you're feeling like that, just get somebody else's perspective. So particularly somebody who knew you you might think of the good old days when you thought you were on the path you were supposed to be on. Just ask them what they think now. One of my childhood friends, I remember when we were little, we used to talk about what we imagined we would both be later on. And she always used to say, I totally imagine you with like a bob, wearing glasses, and I don't know where that came from, because I don't normally wear glasses, and she goes, but looking really, really smart in a suit in a courtroom. Well, not surprisingly that, because when I was a kid, that's what I thought I would be. So she also thought that too. And of course, it's not at all the case. I haven't actually asked her this. But I don't think for a minute she would even consider that now. You know, whenever time we meet up, she also is like me, wearing different hats, and we just love talking about our other side hustles that we do, and that's where we get our enjoyment of sharing these. But when we were little kids in the 90s watching LA Law, there weren't many things to look at, and that was one of the identities that I focused on because it looked like success. My mum was a businesswoman, so I wanted to be like her. I
Right.
wanted to have the shoulder pads on, and as we did back then. And I wanted to be powerful. You know, it was back in the day when that sort of Dolly Parton is my ultimate hero. And, you know, she's singing 9 to 5 and all that sort of thing. And you know, that was the sort of the heroic dream of a woman to put the power suit on and be successful. It's a silly thing to hold on to. But yeah, that would be my advice. That go and ask the people that knew you a long time ago, and they'll probably have a really interesting answer. And it'll hopefully be a good one.
Yeah, that's no, I really do like that. I like that stripping back part, that sort of, pulling away from, I guess, what most people would deem as sort of what success would look like, what it would feel like, and just going back to, yeah, just there's obviously human connection there and a bit of a deep level where they're seeing something maybe you're not seeing, someone else's different perspective. It's feedback. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just we're very much not willing to want to hear feedback. But I guess if you're in that space of, I really don't know where I am or where to go, what to do. Not really sure. Like you say, you're stuck. You're in a bit of a stuck place. I think you're absolutely right. Just go with somebody you know first, such as a close friend. Have a conversation, very open, and ask them. And I think just where you shared there about environment's a massive thing, and the people you surround yourself with, and obviously you'd spoken about your mum. Have you always kind of looked up to your mum from a childhood?
Yeah. Well, I think I idolized her very much as a child, and it was quite different for me growing up with a mum that was a businesswoman, that wore the shoulder
Yeah.
pads, because one of the things that sticks in my mind as a big insult that I got as a child was that I only had a part-time mum because my mum wasn't home when I got home. You know, she wasn't somebody who would be there baking cakes and things like that.
Was that deemed as bad then though?
I think
Or not?
some people
Yeah.
thought that was a bit, not everybody,
No, of course,
but
yeah.
I liked it because I felt like it was um inspiring. That was my as a child. That's your perception. But I think I did. At times, my mum didn't have an easy life, and so relationship can become complicated, and that can make grief more complicated as well. Because mum wasn't well for a long time, and she wasn't always very happy. And I think part of my identity, one of my big parts of my identity, was to try and turn that around, or to try to, and you can't do that in reality. And it was really, again, you're having to learn that I'll always be her daughter, but I can't. She's not physically here anymore, so you have to find you. I have to be a mum to my children, of course, as well. Yeah, but yeah, I think your relationship with your parents, everybody has very different stories here. But if you have got one that you were very, very close to, and maybe sometimes very almost a bit too close to, it can become a part of your identity. That, I think, when that gets taken away through death, even as an adult, I'm not sure we always talk just enough about how incredibly destabilizing it is to lose a parent. And I think what's wonderful about podcasts is that things like the Grief podcast that are out there now, this is helping people so much to just know that you're not alone. Because I think one of the biggest things about, for me, losing my mum like that was I just felt incredibly lonely. I could be surrounded by people, but it just felt really lonely. And it's an experience that until you've been through it, is really hard to explain. But the podcast helped me because other people all around the world connecting and talking about this. Yeah.
Well, that's a really nice sweet touch though, that you kind of spoken about with your mum and how you looked up to her and idolized her and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I guess obviously it's not nice what you've been through, but I guess you have took it into a massive positive, which I think is amazing. But I think what I would like to just touch on there, obviously you have created a podcast, I guess, off the back of that sort of grief that you'd been through. And you said you felt really lonely. There might even be people like listening here today that have probably been through a similar place. I know I've grieved with my granddad before and stuff like that, and I know how much you kind of want to shut off and be in your own little bubble, and nobody asks me if I'm all right because you know damn well I'm not going to be all right, kind of thing. What I guess helped you feel a sense of belonging? What kind of brought that connection to you when you did start walking on the beach and listening to a podcast? What action steps or things could you say to people that might help?
I think to me, I couldn't lean on the things that I would have expected I could lean on. Things like immersing myself in books, because I actually found that I felt quite a sense of trauma that was seemed to be affecting my sight. I couldn't see very well.
Wow.
I found reading impossible. My brain, there's a lot of actual, brain changes that go on, and they're proving this more and more now that I don't think people, and physical changes. I had a lot of backache, struggling to get out of bed in the morning. So I had a lot of physical symptoms so that the things that I would normally have tapped into, like writing and reading, which were my go-tos, suddenly stopped. But movement was massive for me. So walking on the beach with my dog, who I absolutely adore, and it can only be ever positive feedback from an animal, which is incredibly helpful at times like that, was really, really useful. And just moving, but not shutting myself off. And that's where putting the headphones on and listening to grief podcasts really, really helped me. Obviously, friends as well, family and friends, being with people and being prepared to be open and let the tears flow. You have to go through it. You can't sidestep it as much as you want. And I think that's a temptation. I think I did try to. I thought after a few weeks, intense pain, I'll be all right now. And I tried to go off on a girlies weekend and just let my hair down, and it was a stupid thing to do because I wasn't okay at all.
No.
And I wasn't my best self a lot of the time as well, because I was almost, it was hard for me to, like, it's a bit like if you've ever been through a breakup and, the world, you look around the world and you think, why is everybody else okay? I'm really not okay. My world literally shattered, even though everything else was the same. And I think it's the same with grief. So yeah, I had to find a way to tap into different things that would help me that I never listened to podcasts before that. And that was a new thing. And just walking and getting my body moving, getting it out. It's like I had to get all this, this stuff out, and that was the only way to do it. I couldn't run because running was too much. But walking was okay. So you just have to find what's going to work for you. I tried going to yoga classes, but that just freaked me out. Just lying on the floor, and because I can't hear that well and with my eyes closed, obviously, I sometimes find the things a little bit discombobulating. Everybody has their things that will work for them, but don't be surprised if you have to look around, because your landscape will have changed and your friendships might change. I found that some of the people I thought I would get some of the comfort and some support from weren't there in the way that I thought, but other people were incredible.
Yes.
That's also really useful, I think, for people to know that don't be surprised if that happens, because grief has a nasty way of just, like I said, shifting the tectonic plates of your life, and your landscape will suddenly look very different, and your resilience might not be quite where it normally has. So navigating this new terrain can be quite complicated and scary because you're not feeling as strong as you normally do. So that's why I thought to myself, it's not the first time that I'm going to get curveballs thrown at me like this, as everybody will. And I need to get some sense of, Mum's not here anymore. I'm a grown woman. I need to find a way to get that belonging in myself, and that's been incredibly useful. Just understanding that you don't have to fit in elsewhere, and you don't have to put so much emphasis on all these identities that we think we have to have. Suddenly I wasn't anybody's daughter anymore. It was things like, I don't get that birthday card that says daughter on it anymore. Things like that.
Oh yeah.
All these identities that we put a lot of weight on. Just if you can just keep that identity that within yourself and feel strong in that, and listen to your voice on a podcast or talking to somebody, and be nice to that person that you are. That makes sense. Really cheesy, I know.
No, I mean, so much. I'm so glad you shared all of that, because just me sitting back listening here, and I know the guys listening in as well will just be so empowered and moved, because I'm moved, listening to what you've just shared there. One thing I will definitely commend you on, Naomi, is that you find a way.
Okay, thank you for saying that.
So you find a way. So I just want the guys to check in with that a second and just think to yourself, like, the world's against you. It's all caved in, your tectonic plates have just gone all over the place. Even in that sort of like deep rock bottom, that everybody can not necessarily understand if they've not been through it, but they can see it, but you've still found a way. The fact, I just want to share as well that, you've got something that is challenging day to day, right, with deafness, and you've turned it into, but I mean, I'm just saying here, we said this, didn't we, before? I feel like you've got deafness, but you're listening to podcasts on the beach, but because of the effect that trauma had on you, caused your eyesight to go. You didn't just go, see ya, I'm giving up, I'm just going to like suffer in silence. And you still found a way. And that led you to writing, that led you to creating your own podcast platform. And again, just connecting with others through that. So I just wanted to kind of share that and what I kind of saw from it, because I just think it's such a powerful thing that you shared there. And I think it's definitely worth celebrating
That's
that.
really kind. Thank you. Like most English people, I find it hard. If you're given a compliment, you just go, oh, no. No. But thank you. I will say that. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope it's helpful.
Massively helpful. I think there's a lot of, I think the theme of what I'm gaining from this podcast so far is that if the world's against you, if you feel the world's against you, you can find a way.
You can. If you consider that, imagine yourself, this is where I get into my sort of fantasy world of writing. If you imagine yourself as you are that tree withstanding the storm around you, the roots have entrenched deep, and that you sort of stay there within that, and you understand that change will happen. Imagine that is what is going to constantly be whirling around it. I mean, I've always found change difficult, but again, hearing from podcast guests that I've spoken to, it just reminded me that it will continue. That is one of the things of life. You will continuously be subjected to change, but if you can come back into yourself, it's so much easier to just stay. You don't even have to stand up. You just stay there and just let it bring it something at you. That's how I picture it. I'll stay with my roots. I'm not going anywhere. And whether that's, I'm down in Portsmouth, I'm always going to be a Yorkshire girl. I'll always be somebody who wears hearing aids. Then I'll always be somebody who wears lots of different hats and who loves country music and all the things that make us who we are. Those things can't be taken away from me.
Brilliant. Like you say, when you talk about change, it's as though a lot of people are scared of change in a way, because this, if you talk about like preconditioning, life conditioning from like maybe through the childhood into adult life, education, whatever, it's as though sort of their life's kind of look like planned out for them in a way. It's like, yeah, you're going to be in this job now for 20, 30 years or whatever, and you're going to retire at this age, and you know what I mean? And then you can enjoy life after your kids, or once your kids are grown up, you got your life back. And it's just so wrong, in my opinion. So I'd love to know, just from your stance and your experience, from having these conversations with people, even yourself as well, what do you think is the biggest sort of bottleneck for people, and why they fear change so much?
I think if you think about how you start off in life and everything is put in front of you, and you start off, hopefully, if you're lucky, in a situation where the safety around you and the safety in schooling, in a routine. And as we get older, we have to constantly adapt and shift to the fact that we've got to create these routines ourselves. And we are being bombarded now with so many different pieces of advice. We're all, not all of us, but most of us are a bit addicted to our phones. And that means that we're going to get bombarded with people telling us a different diet, different things we need to do. So regardless of the fact that things are going to change around us anyway, you've also been bombarded by all these different pieces of advice of what to do when you go through that change, whatever that may be. So that's just terrifying. It's overwhelming. And I I feel very relieved that I didn't have to grow up with a teenager in this generation. I think it's really, really hard for this generation growing up. You've got a child who's a lot younger than mine, but yeah, overwhelmed. So the fact that change is inevitable and you've just gone every time something hits you, there's too many ways to turn, too many pieces of advice. It's hard to screen it out. And I think that's why we have to find a way, if we can, to try and find within ourselves what our values are, and then we can hopefully screen out other things. And then when things change, it's easy to adapt to it because you know what your values are, and you're not going to listen to toxic stuff on TikTok or whatever else. I mean, it's quite highly addictive, isn't it? All of that stuff, but it's bombardment. If your brains are just we're not built to be like this, are we? We're not meant to be taking all this stuff on all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should be journaling. I should be meditating. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be fasting. I'm in that sort of era now where my children are. I'm going toward the empty nesting stage. Now what? And if I was to type that into my phone, can you imagine how many things would come up and different directions? And for somebody who doesn't stay in the lane, I mean, that's just going to send me crazy. I'm going to be all over the place if I type that in. So change is complicated if you allow it to be.
Definitely. But so just in terms of that, then how do you keep yourself grounded?
One of the things that I've tried to do more is really go back to what I enjoyed doing when I was a child, because somebody did tell me that, and I think I always loved country music. So now I've started, I'm not wearing it today, but I've started sort of really embracing country music and clothes and boots, and knowing that when I do that, there's something that I feel very different.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling a bit down, I'll put some country music on, because I don't know what it is. It's just something about the storytelling of country music and the sound about that I just love. And I'm going to Nashville with my husband in a few weeks, and I can't wait. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm going to Nashville, because I might have mentioned it quite a few times. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's something that I always loved. You know, I remember listening to Dolly Parton back when I was like 6 or 7, and my parents, always played it. And that, it takes me back to a place where life was simpler, and just tapping into those sort of things. Putting a country music song for me keeps me grounded, because I can just be in a happy place there, in my head. Things like that. Things like I used to love actually doing public speaking, and when I was at school. I had to remind myself, there was a part of me back when I was a teenager and things that wasn't worried about my voice, and that's why I allowed myself the opportunity to embrace podcasting. I thought, come on, when you were 16, 17, you loved all this. Why have you stopped doing that? And you'll enjoy it again. I think try and take yourself back to a place when you did feel grounded, and it can help you to go back there. And it can just be putting on a song or finding a smell that takes you back to that amazing holiday. I think those things really are really quick fixes to finding grounding that you don't find when you put your phone on and you start doom scrolling and reaching for the obvious temptations.
Oh, that's pure gold there, though, because I just know how much that helps people feel a sense of freedom, sort of that expression again, like what we were saying about earlier, living your childhood. I love that helps you feel grounded, and I can definitely relate to that as well. I think I just, if we go through childhood, it was very much, like you say, you can kind of get lost in time. You can sort of just have no pressures of like finances, life, society, whatever, and that actually we lose all that fun part of our life. It's all dead serious, and everything's sort of linear. It's like chop, set. Whereas you just stripped it back again. Talk about stripping back, finding a way and going, what do I enjoy doing? What makes me happy? But obviously you're happy with other things, such as your family, your husband, traveling, whatever. But you found something that really brings that and keeps it kind of grounded in a way. And I think that's really important. Again, just as a bit of a sort of insight for the guys listening in, is that if there's something that is out there that you really enjoy doing and you haven't done it for a long time, or you can't remember the last time you did it, go and do it.
Really, it's a game changer. It really helps. Some people might have a really obvious one. I had to really sort of, sit and think about the country music and say, well, of course it is. Of course it's a thing. That makes me feel happy. Why is it not a thing? And yeah, of course it makes sense. Long journeys in the car with my family, and me and my brother decided whether Dolly Parton or Kenny Rogers was better. It's sad as that is. That was my childhood, and these are happy, simple times when I hadn't been subjected to all the other things that you that was ahead of me back then. So why not go back there? You can find it. It's a good thing to do.
Oh, it's brilliant, brilliant. That's like a little bit of a sort of action step for the audience as well, and a reminder for us as well that it's important to have a part of that in your adult life as well. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can't still tap into your inner child, as they say.
Yeah, inner
But what I
child.
look, yeah, inner child,
Love that.
but it's in there. It's in there though. It's within us. But it's just people dim it and don't seem to tap into it anymore. It's like a long gone thing. Oh, those days are long gone. It's like, well, actually, no, they can still be present right here and right now.
But they're not long gone. I mean, you can see that by how much nostalgia is being promoted around us all the time.
Yeah,
Oh, and there's a big event coming on in Portsmouth called the Cafe Mambo from Ibiza. All the 90s hits coming out.
yeah,
People
epic.
love going back to times when they were free and they felt free and they felt happy. So we all like tapping into it, but you don't have to wait for somebody else to put an event on. Go and create it
Exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting on a plane to Nashville is quite extreme. I mean, I can't do that all the time, but
No, I know.
I'm still looking forward to it.
Well, I can tell when you share it. There's so much like smiling going on there, which is
Yeah.
great as well. And I think what I love as well, just backtracking a little bit, where you've spoken about public speaking and now wanting to lean into that. I know we talked a little bit, like I say, just before we come on about you wanting to go into more public speaking and stuff like that. I think what's really good here, though, again, just talking about you finding a way. Obviously, it's not really a battle, but for a lot of people, I know they'd probably think, wow, this is inspiring that there's a female business owner here that has had deafness for as long as she'll ever know, and that she's going out and doing public speaking. She's listening to podcasts, but also she's got her own podcast. So I guess for you, like, what sort of resistance have you come up against, adversity wise or challenges wise, through this sort of like passion that you want to fulfill?
It's really a good question, because I think I've always been the kind of person that if you put a problem in front of me and say I can't do something, then damn, I'm going to do it. I mean, I can't.
Find a way.
I'll find a way. Yeah, I'll find a way, because the public speaking thing, yeah. I have a vivid memory of auditioning for a part at one of the big school plays, and I decided to go a bit improv, and I was really proud of myself. There's the reason why I'm going on to this, because it relates to the speech element. So I practiced it and it was a really silly sort of very Yorkshire poem that my grandma used to tell me. And I thought, I'm going to go in there and show my acting prowess by going in there and acting like this grumpy old lady that was pretending that she wanted to go for lunch with somebody, and then kept putting up excuses. It's a silly thing. It goes, oh, I would like to invite you for a nice cup of tea. It was, but I can't do it on a Monday because it's my washing day. And it was one of these sort of silly little poems where you go for the whole week, and of course she's got no plans to have. And I loved it, and I thought, I'm so proud of myself. And I thought, yeah, I've done it. But I practiced it, and I knew that I could put this really profound Yorkshire accent on, make people laugh, and any voice potential intonation issues at all, S's. I've always had a little problem with S's. I could overcome that because I practiced it. And I got the top of the list when the results came out on the board, and I was absolutely over the moon.
Wow.
But then when I went to go into the reading, I didn't have that time to practice it. I just had to go with whatever was written in front of me, and I was nervous, and so I stumbled a bit, and my speech impediment came out a bit more, and I just got given like an extra part at the end instead. I got like given a sub part, and I was devastated. And I sat with it for a bit, and I thought, no, I still want to do it. I'm still going to find a way around it. So instead, I thought, okay, so these sort of on the stage acting jobs are probably not for me, because then maybe I need more time to practice, which obviously I don't do on a podcast, by the way, so that's ironic. And that's when I decided to go and go into the more academic public speaking and in the contest there. And I won some prizes with that, which was great. And then I gave myself the confidence to do it. I completely lost why we're talking about this now, Luke. You need to take me back a little bit. Remind me.
No, just keep going. It was just basically about the resistance
The
or chat that you
resistance.
came up against with
Yeah.
obviously the
Thank you.
speech and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so. So that was there when I was younger. But then I think beyond that, I setting up my photography business, I never really let it become a thing because I think if you are, it might sound crazy, but if you are being the choreographer, which you are as a photographer, of like 1,800 people at a wedding, people just know when the photographer's there that they're meant to listen mostly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
I could almost orchestrate and conduct a wedding, and 90% of the time would get away with nobody ever realizing that I had any hearing loss at all. Because I could use my humor. I've always tried to use a bit of humor with to get past things and move things around, or
Yeah.
go a bit more northern. I didn't hear that, silly me, bit northern, it's the accent, and I played that part. But then I'd come back to my sanctuary of my office, and if the phone rang, I could put speakerphone on. Nothing would bother me. I was completely in control of my environment. I would play the part at a wedding, or play the part with a family when I was photographing, or my favourite photography might be profile photography, headshot, because it's just one-on-one. I'm very good at lip reading, and I can hear very well usually with my hearing aids, but I need to be quite close to that sort of thing. Honestly, biggest problem I had was a few years ago, again after Mum died, one of the other changes I implemented was deciding that I would try and structure my week a bit more and go back to working in an office for the first time in over 20 years. Just for maybe 3 days a week, I thought would be a good idea. It might help me from feeling so isolated. And my goodness, I've never felt so deaf as I did a few years ago when I went back into an office. It was not a nice feeling, because suddenly I couldn't control the environment.
Yeah.
Everybody was supposed to answer the phone as part, and I really couldn't hear on that phone, so it'd be excruciatingly embarrassing. So I went and bought a little adapter and put the adapter in, and then of course, if I wasn't there that day, by the time I'd come back again, somebody would have taken the adapter out, and then they'd go, "Oh God, who put that horrible thing in?" It blasted my ears when I picked it up, and there were just all these things that happened that I'd never really come across before, because I didn't have to do when I ran my own business. And I was desperate to sort of fit into this office. And I had this idea of, it'd be really good fun. I'll bring some of the skills that I've learned into this office and meet all these new people. And that will stop me feeling so isolated. And actually, it was the opposite. I had to go through a whole load of stuff again, and then battle a bit and say, look, please don't just shout at me across the room and expect me to answer. I can't, I don't keep changing my desk and put the back to
Okay.
This is not where I work now, by the way, at all. But it's also, it was a learning experience for me as well, that I had to find a way to not get away with it anymore. But I was in a position where I had to say, I am hard of hearing. There are things that I need. And it's quite exhausting doing that. And when you're coming from a place of not a lot of confidence, which I was at the time, that was quite hard. But I'm proud of myself on that side. I will put my hand because I'm proud of that, because I've overcome that and I've learned it. I've moved to a different place now, which is great, and they're very accommodating. I still had to go through the process again of going, like, can't give me the phone, please don't give me the phone. Just give them my mobile number and I'll ring them back. Clients are absolutely fine about it. I work for a lovely creative agency as a copywriter 3 days a week. Just to
There you
add
go.
to the
Yeah.
crazy hat wearing situation that I've got going on, different hats. Cowboy hat, copywriter hat, photographer, yeah. I don't know why I do it. But I do.
You do it because you enjoy it, right? You love it. But I think talking about that resistance, I'm sure a lot of people that maybe are hard of hearing, could relate to that. Like I say, I shared with you, my sister is as well, and I know the kind of challenges even through school, that she kind of faced. But I think just hearing what you've already created through your life and being unapologetically yourself and absolutely loving putting yourself out there, not being afraid to create what you want to create. What would you say at this current moment in time has been your biggest achievement?
Wow, that's a really hard one. I mean, to me, it boils down to not being a mom. I'm really proud of my boys. You don't get anything right as a parent, but I think we've got a great relationship, and I'm really proud of who they've become and how they're growing. Yeah, that's been a real, I feel quite sad sometimes that they're so grown up, because you just think, oh, it's like they always say in life, don't they, that if you could go back, you never realise that you're in the good old days until you leave them. Famous quote from The Office there.
Yeah.
Personally, being a mum. If you're asking more from a career point of view, I feel really proud that I've written and published books, because that is a really hard thing to do. If I didn't
I can
realise how hard
imagine.
it would be. I'd like to get back to that at some point, and I'm sure I will do. But yeah, it's nice to having the physical books on your desk and seeing them, and people that you've never met before saying they enjoyed them, and that's
What?
really nice. Yeah, connect with people around the world. And you just dig into your crazy mind. I mean, you create if you write fantasy or science fiction, which I do, you're creating a whole new world. It's quite fascinating to see how your brain works when you start writing things like that. It's almost like your brain doesn't know where you go. It already knows where the story's going, but you don't. And it's really fascinating when you didn't realize all along that you were dropping like breadcrumbs all along for yourself. Hard to explain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something I'm proud of. I'd like to take it further, because I feel like I did it and then shelved it, not to excuse upon just a little bit. But that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. I've got time, hopefully.
You've got plenty of time. You will sort of definitely complete. I know you will. But I think that's really great how you just shared that. I mean, just more out of curiosity than anything, what kind of come to your mind to write that sort of niche or that subject when it comes to writing? What brought you to go, that's kind of the angle that I'm going to go for?
This is such a cliche, but it is. I'm telling, cliche the truisms, aren't they? I always think that they have been. Honestly, both series that I've written came from a dream. I'm not making up. I do seem to have very vivid dreams, and I remember
Wow.
them and I write them down. And the first series that I wrote was about an alternative world where they're all made from the energy of diamonds, but they start losing, and they all have extended lives, and they start losing their power, their longevity, because things have gone awry. And then they tap into the fact that as humans, we have this abundance of energy because of the way that we exchange emotions and all because of love, and they don't have love in their controlled world, but we do, and that energy is the power that they need to get hold of. So they kind of, there's all these things that happen where we start, they kind of come over here and harvest start playing manipulative games to try and find where they can get the energy reserves from human emotion. Really weird, but it's a big love story. And this time, you know what? It's very me. It's really multifaceted. It wasn't very easy to market because it's not one
No,
thing.
sure.
Yeah, it's not one genre, and that was a learning thing. And the second series that I did is called Death Kiss, very dark, almost Stephen King dark, but with a bit of romance as well. And, but I deliberately wrote that did come from a dream about a girl who can predict when you're going to die in her kiss. It's called Death Kiss.
Yeah.
And it's a whole dystopian world, and there's a reason why she becomes very valuable because of what's going on in the world. You need to know when you're going to die. But I surprised myself with that, because I didn't know I could be that dark. But that again, it's fascinating to if you open the door to your imagination as you did when you were a child, then it's quite enjoyable. Yeah, but it's hard. Writing 100,000 words, 120,000 words into a story is
Wow.
challenging. Yeah, and yeah, maybe one day I will. I would like to get back to it. I will.
I think you will, but I mean, just when you talk about that, I mean, it's like, wow, that's like a different world. But do you know what? How you've explored that and just it's happened. And I guess, like you say, it's opening that door and leaning in and just letting it flow naturally. Like you say, you've never been in one lane. You've always, going in different lanes and you found a way and all that kind of stuff. I think, and the roots, you talk about that stuff. I think it's just, but that is you. So I love that. And I think there'll be, like I say, a lot of people as well. I absolutely love that. And I think it's good as well, because sometimes, like you say, you can be dimmed down. You can be like, oh no, what's this? What's that? What's your niche? What's your market? But I think it's so frustrating and so, I guess, overwhelming as well to try and even pinpoint that. So in terms of your career now and obviously everything that's going on, what's next for you then?
Well, if I picture what my idea would be, is that I can continue the How to Belong podcast.
Nice.
I'd like to turn everything that I'm learning from all the guests that I'm interviewing about their journeys and how that shaped my life going forward and what I've learned from it, and hopefully help other people into a book. And I've outlined that. That would be great. And yeah, I'd love to get back on the stage. I mean, I'm embarrassed saying it because I just think I wouldn't. It just seems like that's another thing to add, but it just, to me, it feels like something that I think I'll enjoy again. And more country music, opening the door to maybe trying being on the stage again and doing some talks would be great. But if it doesn't happen, I'm still a very lucky girl.
It's going to happen. Speaking on stage in Nashville. It's done.
I love that.
It's happening. I know. How good will that be? In front of all people with country hats on and stuff. That'd be epic. But no, I love that vision as well. I think it's really exciting. It's challenging as well. It's got a sort of, I guess you could say, top of the mountain, and you got to climb it.
Yeah,
you know,
the journey. The journey is important.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the process sort of thing. So I absolutely love that. Well, unfortunately, we're sort of kind of getting towards the end of this episode now. I mean, honestly, it's been so insightful.
I've loved it.
I'm so glad. And honestly, I could have gone so many more different ways with it, but I just find that we've touched on some really, really good points there that are invaluable. You obviously learn about yourself as well, but I mean, it's invaluable for the audience to take things away, to go away, and it's that impact, isn't it? So just as a sort of final question, obviously you've listened to some of the episodes, so you know it's coming. I'd just love to know from your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Mastering your life to me means, not going to be surprised I say that, it's believing and belonging in yourself. Because if you can do that and you can stay firm to your values and what's important to you, you can withstand the storms and the curveballs and all the changes that are inevitable are going to come. And you can do it in a way that feels authentic and unapologetic. That's a word I think we both keep using for each other, and I think that's great. It's a great word, and that's how you master your life in a way that feels real and with less pain and obstruction as well. Yeah, ideally.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that, and it does really, really summarize this episode so well. In everything that's been shared today. So, if anyone on this show, listening in their ears whilst they're walking the dog on the beach, hey, you never know, wants to connect with you, wants to sort of reach out, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, my website is Naomi Lloyd, alloneword.com. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Naomi E. Lloyd, or I've also got another Instagram handle, How to Belong podcast. That's probably the easiest way. Yeah, I'd love to.
Fantastic. Well, look, obviously all the links and sort of Instagram handles will be included in the show notes so people can easily discover you. Last thing from me, thank you so much, Naomi, for spending this hour with us on the podcast. I've honestly thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, I've loved it. Thank you, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. If you found this useful and it's provided value to you, if you don't mind, go onto my channel, tap follow, and keep in the loop for more podcast episodes like this. And if you want to go one step further, please leave us a positive review. It would mean the world to us, and it would help spread the message to many more people. And also, if you want to go that one step further again, tag us on socials, drop us a message. I will always respond. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.